Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the research vessel Harmony, staring out at the broken pieces of what was once Kelvik Prime. The planet that had been home to the most feared species in the galaxy was now nothing but floating rocks and metal. Debris. 3 months had passed since the final battle that ended the Kelvik Empire forever. The silence in space felt heavy. Deho remembered the stories his grandfather told him about the Kelvik raids on human colonies. Entire families disappeared. Whole cities burned. Children taken as slaves. For 300 years, the Kelvak had spread terror across the stars like a disease that could not be cured. Now they were gone, all of them. "Captain, we are picking up something strange," said Hyjin from her position at the communications station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "There is a weak signal coming from Sector 7. Deho walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of signal?" "It looks like a distress beacon, sir. Very faint. Almost dead." Hyjin frowned as she worked to clean up the signal. "But Captain, the signature is Kelvik." The bridge became quiet. Dr. Taemin, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from his research tablet. "That is impossible. We confirmed that no Kelvik survived the final assault. The coalition forces made sure of that." "I am reading it too," said Hyjin. "The beacon is coming from what looks like an escape pod buried deep in the debris field." Deho felt his stomach tighten. The war was over. They had won. But the idea of even one surviving Kelvik made him nervous. These creatures had shown no mercy to anyone. They killed without thinking. They destroyed everything they touched. "Sir, we should report this to command immediately," said Dr. Taemin. "Let the military handle any survivors." "Wait," said Deho. He studied the readings on Hyjin's screen. "You said it was a distress beacon. Is it asking for help?" "Yes, sir. Standard emergency frequency. Whoever is in that pod is in bad shape. Life support is almost gone." Deho closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the stories of Kelvik cruelty. But he also thought about his own training as a human officer. They had rules about helping those in need. They had principles about protecting life. "Dr. Taemin, what do we know about Kelvik biology?" Deho asked. The scientist pulled up information on his tablet. "They are stronger than humans. Faster. 2. Their claws can cut through metal. They have no emotions as we understand them. They feel no pain, no fear, no love. They are perfect killing machines." "But this one is asking for help," said Hyjin quietly. "Kelvik do not ask for help," Dr. Taemin said firmly. "They take what they want. This could be a trap." Deho looked out at the debris field again. Pieces of Kelvik ships floated past the window like metal ghosts. He thought about all the humans who had died fighting these monsters. He thought about the children who would never see their parents again, but he also thought about something else. What if there was a Kelvik in that pod who was hurt and scared and alone? "Hyjin, can you tell how old the beacon signal is?" "It started transmitting about 6 hours ago, sir. Before that, the pod was completely dark." "So whatever is in there woke up recently," Deho said to himself. "Dr. Taemin, do young Kelvik have the same abilities as adults?" "We know very little about Kelvik development, sir. The few times we captured young ones during the war, they were already violent, but they were smaller, less coordinated." Deho made his decision. "Hyjin, signal the recovery team. We are going to bring that pod aboard." "Sir, I must protest." Dr. Taemin stood up. "This is extremely dangerous. Even a young Kelvik could kill several crew members." "We will take precautions," Deho said. "Full containment protocols, armed security. Medical team standing by." "Captain, the other ships in our task force will not approve of this," Hyjin warned. "Commander Vok of the Thraxian vessel has made his feelings about Kelvik very clear." "Then we do not tell them until after we have the pod secure," Deho replied. 20 minutes later, the recovery team returned with a small, damaged escape pod. It was barely 3 meters long and showed signs of impact damage. Scorch marks covered its surface. One side was completely crushed. "Take it to Cargo Bay 3, Deho ordered. Set up a containment field. I want security teams on all levels. Dr. Sora, the chief medical officer, met them in the cargo bay. She carried a medical scanner and wore full protective gear. Captain, are you sure about this? My oath says I must help the injured, but this thing could be dangerous. We follow human protocols, Doctor. We help those who need help. The pod was placed inside a force field that could stop a Kelvik from escaping. Security Chief Soon-hee positioned her team around the bay with weapons ready. Everyone was nervous. Life signs are very weak, Dr. Sora reported after scanning the pod. Whatever is inside is dying. Open it, Daeho ordered. The pod's emergency release was activated. Steam hissed out as the seal broke. The cover lifted slowly with a mechanical whine. Inside was something none of them expected. A small Kelvik lay motionless in the emergency cocoon. But this was not the terrifying monster they had prepared for. It was tiny, maybe the size of a human child. Its gray skin looked soft instead of armored. Its claws were small and dull. Its breathing was shallow and weak. It is just a baby, whispered Dr. So-Ra. The young Kelvik opened its eyes. They were not the cold, black eyes of adult Kelvik that haunted human nightmares. These eyes were bright and curious. They looked around the cargo bay with what seemed like wonder rather than rage. When the small creature saw the humans, it did not snarl or attack. Instead, it made a soft sound that almost seemed like crying. It is scared, said Hyjin. Kelvik do not feel fear, Dr. Taemin insisted, but his voice was uncertain. The baby Kelvik tried to sit up, but was too weak. It looked directly at Captain Daeho and made another soft sound. This time it sounded like it was asking for help. Dr. Sora, what is its condition? Daeho asked. Severe malnutrition, dehydration. It has been without proper care for days, maybe weeks. Captain, if we do not help it soon, it will die. Daeho looked at the small creature. He thought about all the reasons he should let it die. He thought about the human lives lost to its species. He thought about the political problems this would cause, but when he looked into those bright, frightened eyes, he saw something he never expected to see in a Kelvik. He saw innocence. Dr. Sora, save its life, he ordered. Sir, the other ships will demand we turn it over, Soon-hee warned. Then we do not tell them yet, Daeho replied. This is a human ship following human laws. We protect the innocent. As medical teams carefully moved the young Kelvik to the sick bay, Daeho wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his career, or if he had just saved the most important life in the galaxy. Dr. Sora had never treated a Kelvik before. She had studied their anatomy from battlefield reports and autopsy data, but this was different. The small creature lying on her medical table looked nothing like the monsters described in military files. His body temperature is too low, she told Captain Daeho as she worked. Kelvik are supposed to run hot, but this one is almost cold to touch. His? Daeho asked. Yes, the bone structure suggests male. And Captain, there is something else strange. His brain scans show activity in areas that should not exist in Kelvik. Dr. Sora pointed to the display screen showing the young Kelvik's neural patterns. These regions here control empathy and emotional processing, according to our research. Adult Kelvik have no activity in these areas at all. The baby Kelvik stirred on the table. His eyes opened and he looked around the medical bay with curiosity. When he saw Dr. Sora, he made a soft chirping sound. That is not a Kelvik war cry, Daeho observed. No, it sounds almost like he is trying to communicate peacefully, Dr. Sora agreed. She slowly reached out her hand toward the small creature. The young Kelvik did not attack. Instead, he carefully touched her fingers with one tiny claw. His touch was gentle, not aggressive. Impossible, whispered Dr. Taemin from the doorway. Kelvik young are trained to kill from birth. They show aggression within days of hatching. This one is different, Dr. Sora said softly. Look at his behavior. He is curious, not violent. He seems to want contact, not conflict. Over the next 3 days, the young Kelvik grew stronger under Dr. Sora's care. The crew began calling him Key One because he responded to the sound of That name, when engineer Jae-sung said it while fixing a medical monitor. Ki-Hwan showed intelligence that surprised everyone. He learned to recognize different crew members and made different sounds for each person. When Dr. Sora entered the room, he chirped happily. When Security Chief Sung-hee visited, he made a lower, more respectful sound. He is learning our social patterns, Jae-sung reported to Captain Daeho. Yesterday I dropped a tool and he picked it up and handed it back to me. No Kelvik has ever helped a human before. But not everyone was happy about K1's presence on the ship. Captain, I have received 3 urgent messages from the Thraxian command vessel, Haijin reported during the morning briefing. Commander Vok is demanding to know why our medical bay shows extended life support usage. What did you tell him? Daeho asked. That we are treating injured crew members from the debris recovery mission. But sir, he is getting suspicious. Dr. Taemin spoke up from his chair. Captain, I have been studying Ki-won's development. His emotional responses are growing stronger each day. But I am worried about what will happen when he gets bigger and stronger. What do you mean? Dr. Sora asked. Even if he seems peaceful now, he is still Kelvak. His instincts could change. His species has 3 centuries of genetic programming. For violence, Jae-sung shook his head. I spend time with Ki-won every day teaching him basic human customs. He shows no signs of aggression. Yesterday he saw me cut my hand on a sharp edge and he made distressed sounds. He was worried about me. That proves nothing, Dr. Taemin argued. Adult Kelvek are known to show false emotions to trick their prey. He is not prey hunting, Dr. Sora said firmly. His brain scans showed genuine emotional responses. The areas that control deception and manipulation are inactive. The debate was interrupted when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Oh! Hands to emergency stations, Haijin announced over the communication system. We have incoming vessels. On the main screen, 3 ships appeared. One was sleek and silver, a Thraxian cruiser. Another was crystalline and blue, a Vectan science vessel. The third was organic-looking with flowing curves, an Alderani diplomatic ship. Captain Daeho, this is Commander Vok of the Thraxian fleet, came a harsh voice over the speakers. We have detected unusual biosignatures aboard your vessel. We demand permission to board and inspect. Daeho looked at his crew. They all knew what this meant. If the other species found Ki-won, they would demand his immediate execution. Commander Vok, we are conducting sensitive research operations. I cannot allow inspections at this time. Captain, do not test our patience. The Kelvek are our enemies. If you are harboring any survivors, you are violating galactic law. Dr. Sora stood up. Captain, I need to check on Ki-won. All this noise and activity might be frightening him. She hurried to the medical bay and found Ki-won huddled in the corner of his containment area. He was making soft, scared sounds and his eyes were wide with fear. It is okay, little one, Dr. Sora said gently. You are safe here. Ki-won looked at her and made a questioning chirp. Those are other species, Ki-won. They are not like humans. They do not understand that you are different. As if he understood her words, Ki-won moved closer to the force field that separated them. He pressed his small hand against the barrier and looked directly into Dr. Sora's eyes. For a moment, she saw something that made her heart ache. In those bright eyes, she saw a child who knew he was not wanted by the galaxy. A child who understood that his very existence made others afraid. Back on the bridge, the situation was getting worse. Captain Daeho, this is Ambassador Nalvi of the Alderani delegation, came a musical voice. We have grave concerns about reports of Kelvik activity in this sector. As a peaceful species, we must insist on verification that no threats remain. And, This is Research Prime Court 7 of the Vectine Collective, added a ringing, crystal-like voice. Our sensors detect unusual neural activity signatures consistent with Kelvik biology. We require immediate clarification. Daeho felt trapped. 3 of humanity's most important allies were demanding answers he could not give without putting Ki-won in danger. Sir, Sung-hee said quietly, if they board the ship, they will find him within minutes. What are your orders? Daeho Ho thought about the small creature in the medical bay. Kiwon had shown nothing but gentleness and curiosity. He had tried to help when Jae-sung was hurt. He had responded to kindness with trust, but he also thought about the political consequences. If humanity was seen as protecting a Kelvik even, a baby, it could destroy their relationships with other species. It could end their membership in the galactic community. Captain, they are powering weapons, Haijin reported with alarm. Sir, your orders? Seung-hee asked again. Daeho looked at his crew. Each of them had spent time with Kiwon. Each had seen his gentle nature. But they were also loyal to their captain and their species. Prepare for boarding, Daeho said finally. But move Kiwon to emergency medical quarantine. Lock down that section. Sir, if they find him there, it will look even worse, Dr. Taemin warned. Then we better hope they do not look too hard, Daeho replied. As the 3 alien ships moved closer, Dr. Sora sat with Kiwon in the quarantine room. The young Kelvak seemed to sense the danger. He stayed close to her and made soft, worried sounds. I will not let them hurt you, she whispered to him. I promise. But even as she said the words, Dr. Sora wondered if it was a promise she could keep. The first boarding shuttle docked with a metallic clang that echoed through the ship. Kiwon flinched at the sound and looked up at Dr. Sora with trust in his bright eyes. She hoped that trust would not be the last thing he ever felt. The boarding party consisted of 6 aliens, 2 from each species. Commander Vok led the group with his 4 muscular arms and gray, rocky skin. The Thraxian moved through the corridors of the Harmony like a walking boulder, his red eyes scanning everything. Captain Daeho, we will inspect every section of this vessel, Commander Vok declared. If you are hiding Kelvak survivors, we will find them. Behind him floated Ambassador Naudi, her blue translucent form glowing softly. The Alderani were known for their peaceful nature, but even she looked concerned. Captain, surely you understand our worry? The Kelvak showed no mercy to any of our colonies. The 2 Vectan representatives moved like living crystals, their bodies chiming softly with each step. Research Prime Court 7 spoke in musical tones. Our sensors continue to detect Kelvak neural patterns. This cannot be ignored. Captain. Daeho led them through the ship, showing them the cargo bays, crew quarters, and research labs. His heart pounded each time they passed near the medical section where K1 was hidden. Sir, the quarantine section is sealed due to contamination protocols. Security Chief Seung-hee explained when Commander Vok pointed toward the medical bay. What kind of contamination? The Thraxian demanded. Dr. Sora stepped forward. Unknown. Biological samples from the Kelvik debris field. We are studying them in isolation to prevent any spread of disease. It was not entirely a lie. Kiwon was a biological sample from the debris field. But Dr. Sora felt sick lying to their allies. Meanwhile, in the hidden quarantine room, Kiwon sensed the tension throughout the ship. The young Kelvak had grown remarkably in the past week. He was now the size of a human 10-year-old and much more aware of his surroundings. Stay quiet, little one, Dr. Sora whispered to him through the communication system. There are people here who do not understand you like we do, Kiwon nodded. He had learned many human gestures and expressions. His intelligence continued. To amaze everyone who worked with him, the inspection continued for 2 hours. Commander Vok grew more frustrated as they found nothing suspicious. But just as the boarding party was preparing to leave, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency in engineering, Jae-sung's voice came over the speakers. Reactor containment breach. All personnel evacuate level 7. Captain Daeho's blood turned cold. A reactor breach could destroy the entire ship. How bad is it? The primary cooling system failed, Jae-sung reported. I need to reach the manual override, but the radiation levels are too high for humans. What about environmental suits? Sir, the leak is too severe. Even with full protection, a human would receive fatal radiation exposure before reaching the controls. Commander Vok stepped forward. Thraxian physiology can handle more radiation than humans. I will go. No, said Research Prime Court 7. Vectin crystal structure is immune to this type of radiation. We should attempt the repair. But before anyone could move, Dr. Sora's voice came over the communication system. Captain, Key 1 wants to help. He says he can reach the controls. Absolutely not, Dr. Taman protested. We cannot risk. Who is Key 1? Commander Vok interrupted. You said the quarantine area contained only biological samples. Captain Deho closed his eyes. There was no way to hide the truth anymore. Key 1 is a young Kelvic survivor. We rescued him from the debris field. The reaction was immediate and explosive. You are harboring a Kelvic? Ambassador Null, these form flickered with shock. This is an act of war against the Galactic Coalition. Commander Vok roared. Kelvic biology would indeed be resistant to this radiation type. Research Prime Court 7 observed with scientific detachment. Sir, we have maybe 10 minutes before containment fails completely, Jae-sung warned. If that happens, we all die. Captain Deho made his decision. Dr. Sora, bring Key 1 to engineering, now. Captain, this is madness, Dr. Taman protested. This creature could kill us all, Commander Vok added, but there was no time for debate. Dr. Sora arrived with K1, who looked nervous but determined. The young Kelvic had grown tall and lean, his natural strength now obvious. But his eyes still held the same gentle intelligence they had seen from the beginning. Key 1 looked at the assembled aliens and humans. He could sense their fear and anger, but he also understood the danger they all faced. Key 1, Captain Deho said carefully, we need someone to go into that room and turn off the reactor manually. It is very dangerous. You do not have to do this. Key 1 looked through the thick glass at the radiation-filled engineering section. Then he looked back at the humans who had saved his life and cared for him. He spoke in careful, slow words that Jae-sung had taught him. I help family. Family? Ambassador Nalvi whispered. He considers us his family, Dr. Sora explained. We are the only people who have ever shown him kindness. Key 1 walked to the sealed door. His natural Kelvic strength allowed him to force it open despite the safety locks. Radiation alarms screamed as he entered the contaminated area. Everyone watched through the observation window as Key 1 moved through the engineering section. His longer arms and natural agility allowed him to reach controls that would have been impossible for humans to access quickly. His movements are so precise, observed Research Prime Court 7. No wasted motion, remarkable efficiency. He is not attacking anything, Ambassador Nalvi noted with surprise. Every Kelvic we have encountered has been destructive. This one is different, Captain Deho said simply. Key 1 reached the manual override controls. But as he worked, a section of damaged piping fell from the ceiling. Instead of ignoring it, Key 1 caught the heavy metal beam and carefully moved it aside so it would not damage other equipment. He is protecting our ship, Sung he said in amazement. Why would a Kelvic care about human property? Commander Vok asked, confusion clear in his voice. Because he cares about us. Dr. Sora answered. Key 1 completed the shutdown sequence and the radiation alarm stopped. The reactor was stable. He had saved them all. When Key 1 emerged from the contaminated area, he looked tired but proud. He walked directly to Captain Deho and made a small bow that Jae-sung had taught him. Ship safe now, Key 1 said in his careful, learned words. The engineering bay was silent except for the hum of equipment. The three alien species stared at Key 1 with expressions ranging from confusion to wonder. I do not understand, Commander Vok said slowly. Kelvic do not help others. They take, they destroy. They kill. One looked at the Thraxian commander. I not like other Kelvic. I choose to help. I choose to protect family. You could have let us die, Ambassador Nell, they said. Your species would have celebrated our deaths. I am not my species, Key 1 replied. I am Key 1. I choose my own path. Research Prime Court 7 moved closer to study Key 1. Fascinating. This individual shows none of the neural patterns we associate with Kelvic aggression. He saved our lives, Dr. Sora said. Does that not count for something? Commander Vok was quiet for a long time, Finally he spoke. One act does not erase 3 centuries of war. But maybe it could be a beginning. Captain Deho suggested. As the boarding party prepared to leave, each alien looked at Ki-1 differently than when they had arrived. They had come expecting to find a monster. Instead, they found a young being who chose to risk his life to save theirs, but Ki-1 could sense their continued fear and distrust. That night he sat with Dr. Sora in the medical bay. "They still afraid of me," he said sadly. "Yes," Dr. Sora admitted. "But fear can change. You showed them something today they never expected to see. What I show them. That being Kelvik does. Not make you evil, that you can choose to be good." Ki-1 was quiet for a moment. "Will they try to hurt me?" Dr. Sora looked at the young being who had become like a son to her. "I do not know, Ki-1, but we will not let them." As the Harmony continued its mission, news of Ki-1's rescue spread through the galactic fleet. Some species called for his immediate execution. Others demanded he be studied. A few suggested that maybe, just maybe, they should listen to what the humans had discovered, but Ki-1 continued to grow and learn, proving every day that he was more than his species' dark history. He was becoming something new, something hopeful. 3 weeks after the reactor incident, Dr. Sora made a discovery that changed everything she thought. She knew about the Kelvak species. She was studying Ki-1's brain scans when she noticed something unusual. The areas that controlled emotions and empathy were not just active, they were growing stronger each day. But they were also strange, dead sections in his neural tissue that looked like old scars. "Ki-1, I need to ask you some questions about your past," Dr. Sora said during one of their regular medical checkups. Ki-Imon, now grown to the size of a human teenager, sat patiently on the examination table. His English had improved greatly thanks to daily lessons with Jae-sung. "I try to remember, but it is hard," Ki-1 said. "Before the pod, everything is dark and pain. Do you remember other Kelvik? Your parents, maybe?" Ki-1's face showed distress. "I remember voices, angry voices. They said I was broken. They said." "I felt too much." Dr. Sora leaned forward. "What do you mean, you felt too much?" "Other young Kelvik, they did not cry when hurt. They did not care when others suffered, but I did." The voices said this made me weak. Dr. Sora's heart raced. "Ki-1, do you remember any medical procedures?" "Things done to your head." Ki-1 touched his temple carefully. "Yes, they put me in a machine. It hurt inside my head. They said it would fix the broken parts, make me strong like others." Dr. Sora immediately called Captain Deho and Dr. Taemin to the medical bay. When they arrived, she showed them Ki-1's brain scans next to historical data about adult Kelvik. "Look at these dead neural pathways in K1's brain," she pointed to the scans. "They match exactly with the areas that are completely absent in adult Kelvik." "What are you suggesting?" Dr. Taemin asked. "I think the Kelvik were not naturally aggressive. I think they made themselves that way on purpose." Captain Deho stared at the scans. "That is impossible. The Kelvik have been violent for centuries. But what if they were not always violent?" Dr. Sora continued. "Ki-1 remembers being different from other young Kelvik. He felt empathy naturally. The others did not because something had been done to them." She pulled up more data on her screen. "I have been studying the Kelvik genetic samples we collected from the debris field. There are traces of an unknown biological agent in the neural tissue of adult specimens." "What kind of agent?" Dr. Taemin asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "Something that attacks the emotional centers of the brain. But Ki-1 shows no signs of this infection. His emotional development is completely natural." Ki-1 listened to their conversation with growing understanding. "You think my people were made sick?" "Yes, Ki-1. I think your species was infected with something that made them unable to feel love or compassion. But you were born after that. Infection was gone." Over the next few days, Dr. Sora worked with Ki-1 to recover more of his memories. Using gentle techniques, she helped him remember fragments of his early life. "There were others like me," Ki-1 said during one session. "Other young ones who felt things. But they disappeared after the machine treatments. What happened to them? I do not know. The adult Kelvek said they were fixed. But I never saw them again. Dr. Sora felt sick. Key 1, I think your people were destroying the natural empathy in their children. They were turning them into weapons. Meanwhile, Jae-sung had been working with Key 1 to decode ancient Kelvak writing found in the debris field. What they discovered was shocking. Captain, you need to see this. Jae-sung called Daeho to the research lab. On the screen was a translated Kelvak text that was thousands of years old. It described a peaceful civilization that valued art, music, and philosophy. The ancient Kelvak had been explorers and teachers, not conquerors. This cannot be real, Dr. Taemin protested. The Kelvak we fought were monsters. But look at this section. Ki-won pointed to part of the text. It talks about a great sickness that came from the stars, a sickness that changed minds. The ancient records described a parasitic organism that had infected the Kelvik homeworld. Instead of fighting the infection, Kelvik leaders had embraced it. They saw how it made their people fearless and aggressive, perfect for expansion and conquest. They chose to become monsters, Captain Daeho said quietly. Not all of them, Ki-won corrected. This says some Kelvak tried to resist. They were killed by their own people. Dr. Sora put the pieces together. The parasite was eliminated when the homeworld was destroyed. Ki-won was born after that, so he represents what the Kelvak were meant to be. A peaceful, intelligent species, Jae-sung added. Just like the ancient records describe. Ki-won stared at the translated texts with tears in his eyes. My people were not always evil? No, Ki-won. Your people were victims too. They were infected and changed against their nature. But they chose to spread the infection, Dr. Taemin pointed out. They chose to hurt others. The infected ones chose that, Dr. Sora agreed. But Ki-won is not infected. He is what his species was meant to be. This revelation changed how the human crew saw Ki-won. He was not just an exception to Kelvak cruelty, he was proof of what they had lost when the infection took hold. But when news of this discovery reached the other ships in the fleet, reactions were mixed. Interesting theory, Commander Vok transmitted to the Harmony, but it changes nothing. The Kelvak destroyed our colonies regardless of the reason. The cause of their aggression is irrelevant, agreed the Vecton research vessel. The damage was done, but Ambassador Nell sent a private message to Captain Daeho. If what you have discovered is true, then this young one represents something precious. The return of a lost species to its natural state. Ki-won learned about his people's true history with a mixture of sadness and hope. I cannot change what? The infected ones did, he told Dr. Sora. But maybe I can show what we could become again. Are there others like you? She asked. I do not know. The homeworld had many escape pods. Maybe other young ones survived without the infection. Captain Daeho realized the implications. If there were other uncorrupted Kelvik survivors, they would need protection. They would need someone to speak for them and show the galaxy that not all Kelvik were monsters. Ki-won, he said, would you be willing to help us find others like you? Yes, Ki-won replied without hesitation. No one should face this alone like I did. But first, they would have to convince the galactic community that Ki-won deserved to live. And that was going to be the hardest battle of all. As reports of their discovery spread through space, political tensions rose. Some species called for Ki-won's immediate execution before he could spread Kelvik propaganda. Others demanded he be studied to confirm the infection theory. Captain Daeho knew they were running out of time. Soon, the decision about Ki-won's fate would be taken out of their hands. The young Kelvik seemed to understand this too. Captain, he said one evening, if they decide I must die to make others feel safe, I will accept that. No, Dr. Sora said firmly, you have done nothing wrong. You deserve to live. I know, Ki-won smiled sadly. But sometimes good people must make hard choices to protect others. You taught me that. Captain Daeho looked at this remarkable young being who had learned humanity's greatest lessons about sacrifice and compassion. The irony was not lost on him that a Kelvec was teaching them about what it meant to be truly human. The Galactic Council chamber on New Geneva Station was filled with representatives from 47 different species. Captain Deho had never seen so many aliens in one place. The air hummed with different languages, breathing patterns, and the tension of a decision that would affect the entire galaxy. Key-1 sat in a containment field at the center of the chamber. He was now fully grown, standing 2 meters tall with the natural strength and grace of his species. But his eyes held none of the cold hatred that had defined adult Kelvec during the war. Instead, they showed calm intelligence and something that surprised many observers: hope. The human vessel Harmony stands accused of harboring an enemy combatant, announced Supreme Arbiter Moldash, a floating jellyfish-like being whose species had remained neutral during the Kelvec Wars. Captain Deho, you will present your case. Captain. Deho stood and activated his presentation screen. Honored representatives, we discovered that Key-1 is not our enemy. He is a victim of the same force that created our enemy. Images of brain scans and ancient Kelvec. Texts filled the chamber's main display. Dr. Sora stepped forward to explain her findings. The evidence shows that the Kelvec species was infected by a parasitic organism that destroyed their capacity for empathy. Key-1 was born after this parasite was eliminated. He represents the original, peaceful nature of his species. Lies and propaganda, roared General Vekmar of the Drakmarian Empire, his reptilian features twisted with anger. The Kelvec destroyed 6 of our colony worlds. My own nest siblings died in their attacks. This creature is no different. With respect, General, Dr. Sora replied, Key-1 has never harmed anyone. In fact, he saved our ship and crew from certain death. One good act does not erase centuries of evil, declared the representative from the hegemony of suns. How do we know this is not an elaborate deception? Key-1 requested permission to speak. His voice was clear and steady as it echoed through the chamber's translation systems. Honored beings, I cannot change what others of my species did. I carry the shame of their actions in my heart every day, but I am not them. I choose peace. I choose to help others. I choose to honor the friendship humans showed me when I was alone and dying. Pretty words, sneered the Drakmarian general. But Kelvec are known for their cunning. How do we know you are not manipulating these naive humans? Ambassador Nalvi of the Alderani floated forward. Her translucent blue form glowed softly as she spoke. I have observed this being personally. His emotional patterns show genuine empathy and compassion. These cannot be faked. The Alderani are pacifists? General Lekmar retorted. They see goodness where none exists. Research Prime Court 7 of the Vecton Collective chimed in with crystal-clear tones. Our analysis confirms the human data. This individual's neural structure differs significantly from recorded Kelvec specimens, but not all the evidence helped Key-1's case. Commander Vok of the Thraxian fleet presented his own argument. Even if this creature is different, what happens when he reproduces? What if the infection returns? Can we risk the possibility of a new Kelvec empire? I understand your fear, Key-1 replied, but I am willing to accept monitoring, restrictions, whatever the Council deems necessary. I only ask for the chance to prove that my species can be more than its dark past. The debate continued for hours. Some species argued for Key-1's execution as the only safe option. Others called for permanent imprisonment. A few suggested he be studied until they fully understood the parasitic infection. Captain Deho watched as his allies abandoned humanity one by one. The Centaurian Republic withdrew their support, unwilling to risk their trade agreements. The Omega Syndicate declared neutrality. Even some human colonies sent messages questioning the wisdom of protecting a Kelvec. Captain, Hygen whispered, the vote is not going well. We are losing support. During a recess, Dr. Sora sat with Key-1 in his containment area. I am sorry, Key-1 said quietly. I never wanted to cause problems for humans. You saved my life and I repaid you with trouble. You repaid us with hope, Dr. Sora corrected. You showed us that even the most hopeless situation can have a good outcome. But if I die, will you remember that? Dr. Sora felt tears in her eyes. We will remember everything about you, Key One. Your kindness, your courage, your choice to be better than what others expected. When the session resumed, the tension in the chamber was overwhelming. Supreme Arbiter Moldash called for final statements before the vote. General Vekmar spoke first. This creature represents an existential threat to galactic security. The only logical choice is elimination. Ambassador Nalvi countered, destroying. An innocent being makes us no better than the monsters we fought. Then K1 asked to make one final statement. The chamber fell silent as he stood. Honored Council, I know many of you lost family and friends to my species. I know the fear you feel when you look at me. That fear is not wrong. It comes from real pain and real loss. He paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. But I ask you to consider this if you kill me. Because of what others did, how are you different from the infected Kelvec who killed innocents because they were different species? If you choose fear over justice, do you not become what you fought against? The chamber was completely quiet. I offer myself to you not as a Kelvec, but as someone who chooses peace. If my death would truly make the galaxy safer, I accept it. But if my life could show that redemption is possible, that even the children of monsters can choose a better path, then perhaps my survival serves a greater purpose. Key One sat down, having said everything he could. Supreme Arbiter Moldash called for the vote. All in favor of immediate execution? 15 species voted yes. All in favor of permanent imprisonment? 12 species voted yes. All in favor of conditional freedom under human supervision? 11 species voted yes. Abstentions? 9 species abstained. Captain Deho's heart sank. The execution faction had won, but then Ambassador Nalvi requested to change her vote. I have listened to this being's words and observed his actions. I cannot vote to destroy someone who embodies the very principles we claim to defend. The Alderani Confederation changes its vote to conditional freedom. One by one, other representatives reconsidered. The representative from the Kaleri Union changed her vote. Moved by Key One's willingness to accept death rather than cause more suffering, the final tally was close. 23 votes for conditional freedom. 24 votes for elimination or imprisonment. Captain Deho closed his eyes. They had lost. By a single vote, but then the chamber doors opened and an unexpected figure entered. It was Fleet Admiral Chun of the Human Colonial Defense Force, the highest-ranking human military officer in the galaxy. I invoke humanity's right to cast the deciding vote in matters involving human-rescued individuals. Admiral Chun announced. Admiral, Captain Deho stood in surprise. I thought Earth Command had disavowed our actions. Earth Command does not speak for all of humanity, Captain. After reviewing your reports and the evidence you have presented, I am authorized to cast humanity's vote. Admiral Chun looked directly at Key One. Young being, you have shown more courage and wisdom than many military officers I have known. Humanity votes for conditional freedom. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some species cheered, others protested angrily. But the vote was final, 24-23 in favor of letting Key One live. Supreme Arbiter Moldash restored. Order. The Council has decided. The individual known as Key One will be granted conditional freedom under human supervision. He will be monitored and restricted in his movements, but he will be allowed to live and contribute to galactic society. Key One looked stunned. I am free? You are alive, Captain Deho corrected with a smile. Freedom is something you will have to earn day by day. Then I will earn it, Key One replied. I will show the galaxy that some choices matter more than genetics. As the council session ended, Key One approached the containment field barrier. On the other side stood representatives of species that had voted to kill him, species that had voted to save him, and species that remained undecided about what he represented. Thank you, he said to all of them. I will try to be worthy of this chance. Admiral Chun walked over to Captain Deho. Captain, you and your crew are being reassigned to a new mission. We are forming a task force to search for other uncorrupted Kelvec survivors. Ki-1 will serve as our guide and translator. Captain Deho looked at his young friend who had grown from a dying child into a symbol of hope. Are you ready for that responsibility, Ki-1? I'm ready to help others like me find their way home, Ki-1 replied. And to show the galaxy that even monsters can leave behind something good. The battle for Ki-1's life was over. But the battle for his species' redemption was just beginning. 2 years after the Galactic Council's decision, the Harmony had become the most famous ship in known space. Captain Deho watched from the bridge as they approached their 15th rescue mission, a damaged space station in the Outer Rim where survivors had been trapped for 3 days. Captain, we are receiving distress signals from multiple species, Hyjin reported. Thraxian, Alderani, and what appears to be uncorrupted Kelvic signatures. Ki-1, you are needed on the bridge, Captain Deho announced over the communication. System.Key-1 arrived within minutes, now wearing the blue uniform of the Galactic Rescue Service. His natural Kelvic strength and agility had made him invaluable in rescue operations, but it was his compassion that had truly changed the galaxy's perception of his species. The station's hull is breached in multiple sections, Ki-1 observed, studying the sensor readings. Some survivors are trapped in areas too dangerous for most species to reach. But not too dangerous for you? Dr. Sora asked. She had been promoted to Chief Medical Officer for the Galactic Rescue Service and had become like a mother to Ki-1. I can reach them, Ki-1 confirmed. But I will need help carrying the injured. Security Chief Soong, he stepped forward. My team is ready to assist. Over the past 2 years, Ki-1 had saved hundreds of lives alongside his human crew. Each rescue had been documented and broadcast across the galaxy, slowly changing opinions about what it meant to be Kelvec. The rescue operation proceeded smoothly. Ki-1 led the teams through the damaged station, his superior strength allowing him to move debris that would have been impossible for others to handle. When they found a group of Thraxian children trapped in a collapsed section, Ki-1 worked for 6 hours straight to create a safe passage. Why does he help us? One of the young Thraxians asked Dr. Sora as she treated his injuries. Our people voted to execute him. Because Ki-1 judges people by their actions, not their politics, Dr. Sora explained. He believes everyone deserves help when they are in danger. But the most significant moment came when they found the Kelvic survivors. 3 young Kelvec, all born after the homeworld's destruction, had been hiding in the station's lower levels. They were malnourished and terrified. When Ki-1 approached them, they initially cowered in fear. They had been taught by other refugees that they were monsters who would never be accepted anywhere. You are safe now, Ki-1 told them in the ancient Kelvic language that Jae-Sung had helped him learn. You are not alone anymore. Are you really Kelvec? One of the young survivors asked. You do not act like the stories say. I am Kelvec. But I choose my own path, Ki-1 replied. And now you can choose yours too. Dr. Sora watched this reunion with tears in her eyes. Over the past 2 years, they had found 12 other uncorrupted Kelvic survivors. Each one had been given the same choice Ki-1 received, the chance to prove they were more than their species. Doc History. The rescue mission was completed without casualties. As the Harmony returned to New Geneva Station, Ki-1 sat in the observation lounge with the 3 new Kelvic survivors, teaching them about the galaxy they would now be part of. The humans saved you? Asked Yuki, the youngest of the 3. Yes, but more than that, they gave me a family, Ki-1 explained. They showed me that what you are born as matters less than what you choose to become. Captain Deho joined them in the lounge. Ki-1, we have received a new assignment. The hegemony of suns has requested our assistance with a first contact situation. The hegemony? Ki-1 was surprised. They were one of the species that voted for my execution. People change, Captain Deho smiled. They specifically requested you for this mission. They believe your unique perspective could help with negotiations. The next morning, they received an even more surprising message. Commander Vok of the Thraxian fleet requested permission to visit the Harmony. When the Thraxian commander arrived, he looked uncomfortable but determined. He found Kiwan in the ship's workshop, where the young Kelvik was building toys for the rescued children they had taken to safety over the years. "I owe you an apology," Commander Vox said without preamble. "I voted for your death based on fear and prejudice." Kiwan looked up from his work. "You voted based on your experiences. Your people suffered because of mine. But you are not responsible for their actions," Commander Vox continued. "My nephew was on that station you rescued. He told me how you worked for hours to save strangers who could not help you in return. That is not the behavior of the Kelvik I fought in the war." "I had good teachers," Kiwan replied, gesturing toward the bridge where the human crew worked. "Yes, you did. But you also made good choices?" Commander Vox extended one of his 4 hands toward Kiwan. "I would be honored to call you an ally." Kiwan carefully shook the offered hand. "I would be honored to earn that title." That evening, the crew of the Harmony gathered for their weekly meeting. But this time they were joined by the 3 new Kelvik survivors and representatives from 5 different species who had come to observe their operations. "In 2 years, we have rescued over 300 beings from 17 different species," Captain Deho reported. "But more importantly, we have shown the galaxy that redemption is possible." Ambassador Nal The, who had become a regular visitor to the ship, glowed brighter as she spoke. "The Alderani Council has voted to establish a new protocol. Any individual who demonstrates peaceful intentions will be judged by their actions, not their species history. The Vecton Collective has reached a similar conclusion," added Research Prime Court 7. Kiwan's behavioral patterns have provided valuable data on the importance of nurture over nature in species development. But the most meaningful moment came when young Yuki asked Kiwan a question that had been troubling her. "Kiwan, do you ever wish you had been born as a different species? One that was not hated and feared?" Kiwan considered the question carefully. Around him sat humans who had risked their careers to save him, former enemies who had become friends, and young Kelvik who looked to him for guidance. "No, Yuki, if I had been born different, I would not have learned what I learned. I would not have been saved by such brave people. And I would not be able to help others like us find their way to a better life." Dr. Sora smiled at his answer. "Besides, being Kelvik gives you advantages in rescue work that other species do not have." "That is true," Kiwan agreed. "But the most important thing it gave me was the chance to prove that anyone can change, that anyone can choose to be better." As the meeting ended, Kiwan walked to the observation deck where he often went to think. Through the transparent aluminum window, he could see New Geneva Station and the ships from dozens of species docked there. Captain Deho joined him at the window. "Any regrets about the path we chose?" "None," Kiwan replied. "You saved one life, that day in the debris field. But that one life has helped save many others." "You saved yourself, Kiwan. We just gave you the chance." "Then that is what we do for others," Kiwan said. "We give them chances. We show them that their past does not have to define their future." A message appeared on the communication panel. It was from Earth Command, assigning them to their next mission. A diplomatic crisis in the Beta sector where Kiwan's unique perspective was specifically requested. "Are you ready?" Captain Deho asked. Kiwan looked around the bridge at his human family, then at the 3 young Kelvik who were learning to choose their own paths. Finally, he looked out at the stars where other survivors might be waiting. "For rescue and hope, I am ready," he said. "We have work to do." As the Harmony departed New Geneva Station, its crew carried with them a simple but powerful message: that compassion was stronger than fear, that choice was stronger than genetics, and that even in the darkest times there was always hope for a better tomorrow. Key-1 had grown from a dying child in an escape pod to a symbol of redemption for an entire species. But more than that, he had become proof of humanity's greatest strength, their willingness to see potential for good in even the most unlikely places. The young Kelvik, who had once been alone in the darkness, was now a beacon of light for others lost in the void. And wherever that light shone, it carried the message that everyone deserved a chance to choose who they wanted to become. The monsters were gone. But their orphans had found a new family among the stars, and in that family they learned that love was indeed stronger than hatred, and hope was more powerful than fear. The galaxy was a little brighter because one human captain had chosen compassion over caution, and that choice had changed everything.